A blonde girl draws peacefully in a sunlit garden. She looks up from her drawing with a gentle expression. A red-haired boy snatches her pencil, accusing her of theft. He angrily forbids her from calling him her brother. He screams for her to get out of his house, leaving her stunned. Her crayon drawing of a happy family is left behind in the rain. Her head bows in sorrow, as the sky weeps with her. The girl is introduced as Tracy Daviana, a Marquis' granddaughter. After her parents died in an accident, she was sent to live with her uncle, Gus Daviana. Shadowy figures whisper that she's cursed and bad luck. Her uncle only pretended to care for her during her grandfather's visits. She leaps toward the Marquis, desperately pleading with him. Tracy tearfully begs her grandfather to take her away from this place. He looks down at her, and for the first time in years, she smells flowers. Young Tracy overhears her uncle demanding control of the family business from a sick man. Her uncle angrily declares he's the only son left as her grandfather, the Marquis, coughs violently. A sudden knock interrupts the heated argument. Tracy, worried by the yelling, peeks into the room. Her grandfather gently pats her head, reassuring her that he's fine. He lovingly tells her to return to bed, and she smiles, relieved. Tracy and her grandfather exchange goodnights before she leaves. A man, likely Tracy's father, staggers into the room calling for his dad. After a thud, Tracy watches the rain fall on a dark and stormy night. The narration reveals the Marquis passed away soon after, with Tracy by his side. In a black dress, a grieving Tracy whispers for her grandpa. Two men carry a coffin through the rain at the funeral. Tracy watches the procession, knowing the sorrow in her heart is permanent. Years later, the red-haired boy, now a young man, coldly summons her. He silently leads her through a snow-covered corridor. Her uncle Gus confirms an old arranged marriage is still valid. Gus offers Tracy in marriage to the Hubs family for a loan to clear his debts. A man with dark hair and glasses accuses Gus of trying to access the Hub's fortune. The man condemns him for selling off his family's women to cover his expenses. He rises and contemptuously refuses to marry a worthless woman like her. The family's territory fell into ruin and debt, sparking a citizen uprising. To appease the people, her uncle used Tracy as a scapegoat, blaming the cursed girl for their misfortune. A white-haired executioner grabs her hair and swings a crackling dark sword. With menacing eyes, he declares her death is God's mercy. Tracy's eyes widen in terror before the final blow lands with a splat, ending her life at 16. A voice urges Miss Tracy to wake up. As her eyes snap open in shock, she gasps in bed, relieved to find her head is still on her shoulders. Realizing she has a child's hand, she's told by a maid that Lord Gus has summoned her. She has a stunning realization. She has transmigrated into the body of 6-year-old Tracy. The maid impatiently asks if Miss Tracy heard the instructions. The maid thinks Tracy is pushing her luck with her informal tone and repeats the order to get dressed. The maid condescendingly asks if Tracy can at least manage to dress herself. Remembering her oppressive past, Tracy trembles but affirms she can manage. She clenches the blanket, her resolve hardening as she repeats, "Yes, I can." With a defiant glare, Tracy dismisses the maid, telling her to wait outside. A silent stare down in a grand, sunlit room. Creak. The maid exits, leaving Tracy alone. A voice orders, "Shut the door," stunning the maid. The maid wonders if she imagined the command. She anxiously waits outside the closed door. Tracy realizes she's transmigrated with the original's memories. She stands alone, quietly contemplating her new reality. She recalls the novel's protagonist, a destitute girl who sought revenge. The protagonist ultimately won the admiration of 4 men. She's now Tracy Daviana, a character who dies before the novel's protagonist, Isolde, even begins her journey of revenge. Her death is just the catalyst for Isolde's glorious tale. She laments Tracy's unfair, lonely existence as a mere extra. Clench. She vows to become a new Tracy and survive. Now dressed, she follows the maid down the hall. She finds young Master Oleg kicking a crying maid. Kick. He furiously disciplines the terrified maid. He demands her obedience. She tearfully agrees. Tracy silently observes the maid apologizing to Oleg. Oleg spots her and asks if she's addressing him. Her disdainful look says she'd rather not speak. Crouch. She kneels to help the fallen maid instead. She gently asks the maid if she is all right. Slap! The maid violently rejects her help, calling her cursed. She clenches her fist, remembering everyone hates her. She understands the maid is repulsed by her cursed touch. She lowers her head, accepting the harsh reality. A quiet moment of clarity and resolve. The maid praises Oleg's discipline. He boasts to Tracy. Tracy stands up, her expression unreadable. She apologizes for meddling and turns to leave. Hiss. She stumbles to the ground, crying out in pain. Oleg smugly asks why she's acting so proud. He cruelly calls her an unwanted orphan. He taps a brooch, asking if she recognizes it. He declares it's proof he's the true Viana heir. He reminds her she was adopted merely as charity. The maids glare as he tells her to learn her place. He sneers that her curse killed her own parents. His words pierce her heart. Anyone kind to her will die. She realizes they exploit the original Tracy's meekness. She warns herself to keep a distance from Oleg, fearing she'll lose control. Her hand raises, eyes glowing, ready to strike back. The chapter ends on a cliffhanger. Oleg stares in shock, a red mark on his cheek. Quiet, a sudden silence falls over the hall. Grit. Oleg's shock turns to simmering rage. He explodes, threatening to kill her for her defiance. Slap! A flashback reveals she backhanded him twice. Stunned, Oleg can only utter, Oleg stares, confused by her action. Tracy warns she can't hold back from beating him. Whimper. Oleg begins to cry softly. A maid furiously accuses Tracy of being barbaric. Tracy wishes her child's body was strong enough to truly punish him. The maid threatens her with the wrath of the Marquis and Lord Gus. Just then, the Marquis and her Uncle Gus arrive. Glance. The Marquis asks Tracy if she hit someone. The maid lies, claiming Tracy attacked Oleg without reason. The Marquis questions the maid's claim of no reason. Her Uncle Gus steps in, blaming Tracy's emotional instability. He promises the Marquis that he will teach her well. Tracy suddenly apologizes, admitting she was wrong. Her apology leaves Gus and the maids completely stunned. She agrees that everything Oleg said about her was correct. Confused, Oleg asks what he said that was right. The Marquis asks Tracy to repeat what Oleg said. She calmly lists his accusations that she's a cursed misfortune. Interrupts. She loudly declares that Oleg was right about her. The Marquis calmly asks her why he was right. She reasons that if everyone says it, it must be true. Angry, the Marquis turns and questions a nervous Gus. Gus stammers, again blaming Tracy's supposed instability. Slam! The Marquis furiously dismisses the excuse. Tracy watches with a subtle triumphant smirk. Slap! Gus violently strikes Oleg, demanding to know how he could say such things. A stunned Oleg holds his cheek, murmuring for his father. The maid stares in utter shock at her lord's actions. Flinch! The Marquis reminds Gus of his broken promise to care for Tracy. Gus blames the servants, but the Marquis furiously berates him for damaging the family's reputation. He lectures Gus on the severe political consequences of his incompetence. A terrified Gus bows, promising to fire the maids immediately. Silence fills the grand hall after the confrontation. Oleg thinks that he's never seen his father so afraid. Grit. Gus clenches his fist, seething with frustration. Tracy remembers how this useless man ruined the family in her past life. Glance. The Marquis places a gentle hand on her shoulder. She looks up, feigning nervousness as she addresses him. She wonders if her pitiful act is convincing enough. Her Uncle Gus watches with a growing sense of dread. She runs into her grandfather's arms. The scene abruptly shifts to a modern school where class funds are missing. A teacher tells the students to search the classroom for the money. A roll of cash is discovered inside a student's bag. A black-haired girl looks down at the money in her own bag. The entire class turns to stare at her in silent accusation. She is told to reflect on what she did. A blonde girl with purple eyes smirks mischievously. Pove! Splash! The black-haired girl pours a bucket of water on another student. The blonde girl furiously asks if she's crazy. The black-haired girl stumbles back from a forceful shove. The blonde girl orders her cronies to teach her a lesson for her defiance. Lying on the ground, the black-haired girl accuses her of planting the money. The blonde girl is shocked as the black-haired girl glares back with glowing purple eyes. A bully orders her friends to keep beating her until she's broken. Lying alone, she stares blankly, utterly defeated. Wipe! She sits alone, wiping away her tears. Beep! She plays a recording of the confrontation. In front of a police officer, the teacher demands an explanation. They listen in shock to the recording of the bully's cruel commands. Grind. The blonde girl seethes with rage, calling her a bitch. Click. The black-haired girl coolly holds up her evidence. She stands alone, calmly accepting the label. She reflects on learning to protect herself out of necessity. Clip-clop. The scene shifts to a grand manor at sunset. Clip-clop. Young Tracy declares her days of being bullied are over. She reflects on leaving Gus's manor a year ahead of schedule. She's surprised her plan to be rescued worked so easily. She knows this victory is only the beginning of her fight. She knows her child's body is weak, but remembers that not fighting back means death. Grit. She reaffirms her resolve to protect herself. Squeak. Her grandfather's question startles her. She plays innocent, asking what he means. Frown. He notes how different and outspoken she was today. They sit opposite each other in the carriage. She panics, feeling he can see right through her facade. She realizes he's gently probing for information. Grip. She reflects on her goal, not just escape, but exposing Gus's neglect. Clench. She tugs on his leg, pleading that she just wants to live with him. Sniffle. She fears being hated by the one person who matters. Her grandfather apologizes, regretting his sharp words. He acknowledges her suffering, catching her off guard. His kind words break through her act, and real tears begin to fall. He pulls her close, promising to protect her from now on. Her eyes fill with tears of relief and hope. He offers a gentle, reassuring smile. She wipes away a tear, moved by his promise. Her hands clench his coat, surprised by her own strong emotions. He holds her protectively amidst a field of lilies. Badump. She rests against his chest, her heart racing with emotion. She sleeps in his arms, but reflects that he's wrong about something. Gus fumes, vowing to take over the estate and end the lectures. A dark vision reveals future conflict and a demand for control. She jolts awake from a nightmare, remembering the novel's political turmoil. The kingdom was in a secret power struggle, and House Viana was a target. The Viana sons met tragic ends, leaving only Isolde and Tracy. Even the capable Marquis is fated to die in 2 years. Tracy realizes the family's deaths weren't coincidences and resolves to save her grandfather and his estate from Gus's ruinous reign. A hazy purple light fills her vision as she wakes. A worried maid rushes to her side, asking if she's all right. Comfort. The maid gently soothes her, promising the nightmares will fly away. She remembers that she moved into the Grand Viana Manor just yesterday. Her new personal maid, Winnie, introduces herself with a warm smile. Tracy silently thinks that she doesn't need a personal maid. Squeeze! The enthusiastic maid pulls her into another tight, comforting hug. She comically thinks that being strangled by the maid is scarier than any nightmare. Her suspicions rise. She wonders if this surprisingly strong maid is secretly an assassin. Now on the floor, she can't reach the wash basin, and Winnie again offers assistance. She fumes over her weak child's body, wondering how she can be her grandfather's other option. Now dressed in a lovely gown, her expression is serious and thoughtful. She watches from afar as Winnie speaks with a stern-looking man with an eye patch. The man with the eye patch approaches, stating he heard she wanted to go shopping. She looks up at him defiantly, asking if there's a problem. He explains that while custom dresses are ordered, he will take her to buy ready-made ones that will soon be obsolete. He adds a veiled threat, doubting the Marquis would approve of the shopping trip. She narrows her eyes, trying to understand what he's truly trying to say. She realizes with certainty that this man seems to hate her. She quietly wonders what could have happened to make him act this way. Deciding to go along, she quietly agrees that they should be on their way. Their golden carriage travels through a lush, sun-dappled forest. Inside the carriage, she impatiently tells him to just say what's on his mind. He coldly insults her, saying she's become reckless like Gus's family and inherited no good qualities. A small smirk plays on her lips as she realizes he actually dared to say it. She slyly suggests canceling the custom orders since they're buying new dresses anyway. Sigh. She leans on her hand, feigning disinterest in his excuses. She deduces that he never intended to order anything for her in the first place. With glowing purple eyes, she confronts him, asking if he thinks her grandfather was wrong to bring her back. She agrees she's stubborn, noting it's the very reason her grandfather brought her home, shocking the man. She clarifies that he's wrong about one thing. She is not like Gus and Oleg. She lectures him on her grandfather's frugal, hard-working nature, which she intends to emulate. She explains that she doesn't want a maid because her past servants were awful. Her gaze sharpens as she turns the question back on him. Stunned, He demands to know how long she'll keep up her defiant attitude. Bam, he suddenly bows, deeply apologizing profusely for his prejudice and mistakes. Shout, he passionately declares that he lives by the Marquis's teachings and sincerely apologizes. A heavy silence falls between them as he remains standing before her. She reflects on his bluntness, but decides it's best not to dwell on it. Sit. He finally sits as she solemnly warns him not to let this happen again. Her patience wears thin as she asks what the matter is this time. The flustered man stammers, clearly struggling to find the right words to say. A small chuckle escapes her. She thought he was going to say something else. Gazing out the window with resolve, she knows this is only the beginning. Her eyes widen with excitement as they arrive at Lakeside Town in the Vienna territory. She gazes out over the sunlit town, her golden hair blowing in the breeze. Rush. She excitedly dashes toward the carriage door, and the man calls for her to wait. He stops her, advising her that she is clever but must hide her intelligence in public. Now wearing a wide-brimmed hat, she turns and simply asks him why. Startled, the man with the eye patch panics when he sees Tracy has vanished from the carriage. He desperately calls for her to wait as she runs off into the sunlit garden. She reflects on how the queen is suppressing her grandfather's power, making business difficult. The man introduces her to the prosperous town, and Tracy eagerly points to where she wants to explore. As they walk, a knight in full armor stops them, advising butler Nayland not to go any further. Nayland questions the knight's mysterious warning as a confused Tracy looks on. Sensing danger, Nayland quickly blocks her path and insists they explore somewhere else first. The scene flashes to a horrific image of a body hanging against a blood-red sky. Thump! The shocking vision shatters her composure. Collapse! She suddenly faints, and Nayland cries out her name in alarm. Sometime later, as their carriage departs, he gently asks if she is feeling better. Rubbing her eyes, she asks about the woman, and Nayland explains the church's monthly witch hunts. He avoids her gaze, weakly assuring her that it's for the territory's safety. Seeing through his lie, she coldly asks if this means someone is hanged every month. She correctly deduces that the queen is using the church to intimidate her grandfather. Nayland is stunned by her sharp political insight. She calmly tells him to stop lying and to speak to her directly from now on. He explains the queen's tactics, and a trembling Tracy asks why the hunt happened today if it's not the full moon. He reveals the church deliberately rescheduled the witch hunt after hearing of her arrival. The knight adds that they captured a second woman just for Tracy's visit, shocking Nayland. Shiver! She realizes with horror that the public execution was staged specifically for her. Nayland furiously confirms that a girl is currently captured and waiting to be executed. The knight offers to mount a rescue, but Nayland flatly refuses the idea. He decides to retreat, but Tracy wisely argues against worsening her sick grandfather's condition with the news. With determined eyes, she turns to him and requests his help with a plan. Despite his concerns about provoking the church, she leads him back, knowing he's misunderstood. A priest named Seth greets them, requesting they observe the execution, which he calls a sign of God. She thinks he's sick for commanding a child to revere a hanging. She suddenly feigns childlike excitement to see God's sign, completely baffling Nayland. The priest smiles, pleased by her seemingly naive enthusiasm. Turning away for a moment, she lets out a pained whimper. She takes the priest's hand and thanks him for the opportunity. The priest leads her toward the gallows, where a condemned woman with a noose awaits her fate. Tense. Despite mentally preparing herself, the grim reality of the scene hits her hard. Seeing his triumphant smirk, she confirms his only goal was to scare her. Playing her part, she excitedly points and asks if that's the witch. Her unexpected reaction leaves the priest utterly confused. With a sly smile, she drops the act and asks if he wanted her to be scared. The priest's expression darkens as he angrily demands to know what she said. She laughs brightly, quickly backpedaling that hunting evil is a form of God's grace. The priest seems satisfied with her pious answer and agrees. He then announces that they will bring forth the other accused witch as well. He declares that all will witness the young lady of Vienna appreciating this divine blessing. Loom, a second condemned woman with blonde braids, is brought before another gallows. As the crowd whispers about the witches, a little girl sobs for the accused woman. Gaze, watching the crying child, Tracy makes a silent vow to save the woman. She turns to the priest, innocently asking how he knew the women were witches. He smirks, condescendingly telling her not to worry about such things. He presents poems written by the uneducated girl as proof of a deal with the devil. Nayland scoffs at the flimsy evidence, But the priest insists it's more than enough. Tracy cheerfully agrees that the accused woman must be a witch. She recites church doctrine, explaining that a true witch survives fire, while others who burn must be staked through the heart to prevent resurrection. The priest scoffs, unimpressed by her knowledge. She innocently asks if it's the priest's fault. The real witch hasn't been caught yet. Naylan joins in, loudly demanding they burn the woman to confirm her guilt. The horrified priest shouts that burning at the stake hasn't been practiced for a century. Naylan taunts the priest, asking if he's afraid she'll just die in the fire, proving she's not a witch. As the crowd watches, the crying woman turns to face them. Sobbing, the woman confesses she doesn't know poetry and was just writing her feelings, promising never to do it again. After the woman's plea, Tracy watches with a cold, determined glint in her eye. The priest declares that since the woman has repented, she will be pardoned. Release. A knight frees the disbelieving woman from the gallows. The priest smugly asks if they have any objections, stating he will spare her life now that she's renounced her devil's wisdom. He adds a condition. She will be spared only if she joins a monastery to repent for the rest of her life. Blur. Tracy objects loudly, questioning how anyone can trust the words of a witch. She continues her act, shouting that a witch's words can't be trusted. Pounce. She jumps into Naylan's arms, crying that she's too scared for the witch to be set free. Naylan awkwardly plays along, stiffly comforting the crying Miss Tracy. Wah. The completely confused priest wonders what they want, since they won't let him save or hang the girl. Tracy screams her demand again. They must burn the woman at the stake to truly know if she's a witch. The priest vehemently refuses, arguing that burning is too cruel and has been out of practice for ages. Naylan presses his advantage, again accusing the priest of fearing she'll die instantly and be proven innocent. He coldly asks how the priest will explain himself if she dies, forcing him to admit the church executes innocent girls monthly. The priest quietly warns Sir Naylan to watch his words. He slyly asks if Naylan will insist on proving him wrong, even if it means condemning an innocent girl. The freed woman desperately begs Sir Naylan to spare her, appealing to his master's righteous reputation. The priest mocks him, questioning how such a cruel act aligns with the Vienna creed he follows so diligently. Crying, Tracy reminds Uncle Naylan of his promise to protect her, claiming she's terrified. With renewed resolve, he shouts that Miss Tracy is frightened and orders his men to build a pyre. The shocked priest can only watch, as Naylan shouts the order to burn her, while a pyre is swiftly built. The furious priest warns Naylan that he's gone crazy and will regret his decision. He leans in, whispering that rumors call Tracy a witch and threatening church retaliation for defying him. HMPH. Peeking from behind Naylan, Tracy defiantly declares she is no witch. With a mysterious smile, she steps forward and announces she can prove it. She declares her intention, to endure the test of fire herself. Tracy calmly walks toward the two stunned men. The sweating priest desperately asks the silent Naylan if he's not going to stop her. Naylan cheers theatrically, praising her willingness to sacrifice herself for the family's glory, as the priest screams that they've all lost their minds. As she climbs the pyre, she calmly tells the panicked woman that she isn't a witch and wants to live. "I know," she says to the confused woman. With a confident smile, she reassures the woman, no need to fear. "I am with you." Crackle! Swish! Naylan holds out a lit torch, demanding the priest take it. Naylan formally invites High Priest Seth to light the fire and show everyone his miracle. The torch flame burns intensely, awaiting the priest's decision. "Grab. Hand it to me," the priest orders, taking the torch. Crackle. He holds the burning torch, ready to approach the pyre. Perched atop the pyre, Tracy innocently asks the hesitant priest if something is wrong. A mysterious light glints in her glowing purple eyes as she watches him hesitate. The priest denies having any issues with the plan. He declares that if the pyre refuses to light, it will be a sign of God's grace. Naylan scoffs at his God's grace excuse, but the priest angrily insists it's divine protection. Tracy cheerfully reframes the situation. They're not witches, but favored by God. Clench. Tracy's statement about being favored by God shocks the priest into reluctant agreement. Turn. Naylan loudly proclaims to the crowd that Miss Tracy is favored by God. He warns the shocked crowd that slandering her will bring divine punishment. Defeated, the priest hands the burning torch back to Naylan. The priest icily vows that he will remember this incident. As the priest retreats in defeat, the damning evidence scatters in the wind. The freed woman sits in disbelief, realizing she has survived. Miss Tracy, the woman, cries, questioning how a god could allow such cruelty. Tracy listens with a solemn, unreadable expression. The woman asks in distress how the pyre remained unlit if not for God's grace. Tracy states coldly that neither gods nor witches exist in this world. She explains the true demons are the humans who are ready to see her hang. The woman gratefully thanks Tracy, admitting she would have died without her help. Tracy remains silent, listening to the woman's heartfelt thanks. As the woman recognizes her diary, Tracy tells her not to misunderstand her actions. Tracy coldly explains she only saved her for her own purposes and warns that the church will continue to target her. She declares that, for her, thwarting them is a matter of survival, and she will tolerate no obstacles. She vows to become a renowned villainess to make her territory unchallengeable. She advises the woman to fight back with everything she has, no matter how cowardly she feels. A flashback reveals her plan. She had Nayland prepare water-soaked wood for the pyre. In the carriage, Nayland asks the knight his opinion, but the knight is utterly bewildered. The narration explains that burning the Marquis's granddaughter would cause a kingdom-wide scandal. Nayland furiously berates the knight, questioning how a 6-year-old could have planned everything. To protect her, Nayland takes full credit for the entire scheme, leaving the knight baffled. Though the knight finds it unlikely, Nayland's indignant shouting forces him to accept the cover story. Yawn. Her complex plan complete, the exhausted Tracy lets out a big yawn. As Nayland worries about how to report the day's events, Tracy sleeps soundly in her bed. A promotional image marks the end of the chapter. A credits page acknowledges the creative team. A new scene opens with a worried man reporting that High Priest Seth's plan went awry. He reports that the plan backfired. Nayland saved the woman, and Tracy is now hailed as God's favorite. Damn it, the furious, red-haired man slams his fist on the chair. He notes the church's suspicious speed, suggesting the trap for Tracy was set in advance. He denies collusion, recalling High Priest Seth's threat to eliminate Lord Gus if he fails to prove his use. Meanwhile, news of the incident has already spread throughout the town and reached the Marquis's manor. The maids excitedly gossip about how Sir Nayland and Miss Tracy saved a girl favored by God from the church. Peeking through the window, the maids praise the incredible actions of Nayland and Tracy. Unaware of the spreading rumors, Tracy hums to herself contentedly. Her grandfather turns, praising her wonderful actions and offering her any reward she desires. She sweetly replies that all she wants is to live happily by his side. He declares she will help manage the family business, as she coyly feigns concern about her uncle's reaction. Tee-hee, she happily rolls around in bed, her plan a complete success, burying her face in her pillow. She admits to herself she can't help but feel excited. Bow. The Marquis angrily confronts Nayland for his recklessness, and Nayland humbly accepts all blame for the error. The Marquis asks if he understands the danger he put her in, and Nayland agrees, however. The dark-haired man reminisces to the Marquis about their past, when they fought freely and saved whomever they wished. The Marquis interprets his words coldly, suggesting he finds their current life suffocating and uncomfortable. A heavy silence fills the opulent room as the dark-haired man remains kneeling before the seated Marquis. The Marquis dryly compliments the man's silver tongue as the dark-haired man gives a slight smile. Looking out the window, the Marquis explains that as head of the family, he must be cautious of repercussions. The Marquis warns that for every life they save, their enemies kill 10 in retaliation. His aide realizes he fears their enemies will hurt the young miss. The aide counters that the church will want a scapegoat, and that courage always comes at a price. The Marquis gives a shocking order. Leak rumors that he planned the incident all along, much to his aide's horror. As sunlight streams in, Tracy slowly wakes up, wondering if it's morning. An entire legion of maids lines up before her massive bed, loudly wishing, "Good morning, Miss Tracy." Horrified Tracy recoils from the sight, internally screaming, "What is this?" Butler Nayland, the man with the eye patch, enters her room and calmly asks if she slept well. Nayland presents a line of maids, explaining they are the best in the manor and that she may choose any one of them to be her personal maid. He continues, informing Tracy that her custom items will arrive this afternoon and that he will fulfill her every wish. Nayland internally chuckles at giving Tracy special treatment after calling her reckless, noting his own gentle expression. A stunned Tracy opens a box to find a brilliant red jewel, the emblem of succession. She holds the emblem, understanding it signifies the right to inherit the territory and title of House Viana. Examining the emblem closely, She sees the name carved on it is not Tracy, but William. Naylin informs her that the emblem belonged to her father. He explains that Lord William was first in the line of succession and was considered the pride of House Vienna. When Naylin offers to put the emblem on her, Tracy firmly refuses from her bed. With a confident expression, Tracy declares she will rely on her own abilities and earn an emblem with her own name engraved on it. There, announcing she has much to do in town, she turns to leave, walking past the silent maids and butler. Yank! Her departure is abruptly halted as a hand grabs the back of her dress. Naylin holds Tracy aloft as she protests, explaining the Marquis ordered him to nurture her genius and has brought in the best tutor overnight. A bald man appears, asking to be her intellectual comrade, prompting a shocked Tracy to exclaim, "Wah, so bald." Outraged, Tracy protests that she's only 6 years old and shouldn't be treated this way after performing a great service. Naylin hands the dangling Tracy over to the tutor, stating that a 6-year-old should begin with basic etiquette. From outside the manor, a voice narrates that the pitiful Miss Tracy is pushed to study day in and day out by butler Naylin. Tracy sweetly asks her grandpa if she can go to town, but he gently tells her to finish her studies first. Two maids gossip about Tracy's succession, wondering if it's impossible for a girl, and noting Lord Gus must be nervous. A red-haired man, Lord Gus, scoffs to himself that he would never have been considered for succession if the two late young lords hadn't died. Slap! A loud sound startles Tracy, who looks toward the noise with a questioning expression. The maids plead for mercy from Lord Gus, who just struck one of them for not being aware of his arrival. Lord Gus fumes that the servants are useless and vows to have the maid fired for her incompetence. Shove! He angrily pushes the maid away and orders her to scram. Clang! A door slams shut as Tracy watches the scene unfold in silence. Deciding she needs to knock some sense into them, Tracy tells her teacher she's mastered the curriculum and asks to leave class early. Stare? Tracy approaches a red-haired boy who is sitting on a sofa, watching her. With a smirk, the boy greets her, sarcastically noting that she has finally started taking lessons, despite her position. With a glare, Tracy identifies the boy as Oleg M. Viana. Oleg immediately accuses Tracy of causing trouble with the church, despite only being there for 2 days, to which she defiantly asks, "So what?" He smugly informs her that his father already told him about how she upset the church while she was in town. Tracy silently thinks to herself that Oleg's father certainly has a way with words. Oleg lectures her, advising her to act sensibly and not cause any trouble for their family. Tracy retorts with disdain, asking how she could possibly compare to the trouble he and his father cause. Jump! An enraged Oleg leaps to his feet, knocking over a bag containing a doll as he demands she repeat what she said. The contents of the bag are revealed. A new, well-packaged doll. Tracy's eyes narrow, as a sudden realization dawns on her. Flustered, Oleg insists she not misunderstand, claiming he only bought the popular doll to see what all the fuss was about. Enter. As Naylin walks in, he remarks that young Master Oleg has already given Miss Tracy her gift, catching Oleg kneeling in embarrassment on the floor. Swish A red-haired boy shouts that he's only apologizing because his grandpa made him. Unimpressed, Tracy realizes the true reason for his apology. Sir Naylin tells young Master Oleg that his insincere apology is pointless. Oleg aggressively shoves a doll at Tracy, demanding she accept it. He tells her to take it so they can get along, but she remains silent and expressionless. She coolly states that he doesn't even know how to apologize correctly. Annoyed, Oleg asks what she's trying to do. Open. Tracy calmly asks if it's okay for her to do as she pleases with his gift. Thwack! She throws the doll into a rubbish bin as Naylin and Oleg watch in shock. Watch carefully, Oleg, she says calmly, calling this her answer to his apology. Turn. She announces she is leaving and will make up her lessons tomorrow. As Oleg stammers for her to wait, she suddenly runs into someone. Swoosh! Wah! Chap! An angry red-haired man grabs Oleg's arm, calling him a useless wretch. Tracy stares in utter shock at the sudden violence. The man berates his son for being unable to do anything right. He raises his hand to strike the boy, yelling that raising him is a waste. Naylin intervenes, grabbing the man's wrist and telling Lord Gus to calm down. Lord Gus fumes that his father is trying to humiliate them, but Naylin assures him the Marquis has no such intention. Lord Gus angrily dismisses his son, ordering him to go reflect on himself. Move! As he leaves, Lord Gus gives Tracy a threatening glare. Slam! The door bangs shut, and a startled Tracy collapses to the floor. Across the room, her eyes meet with Oleg's. A void. A blushing Oleg quickly looks away, leaving Tracy completely confused. A narrator wonders about the situation as maids gossip that Lord Gus has been badgering the Marquis to let Oleg move into the main manor. A maid explains that the Marquis refused, stating that Miss Tracy's permission was needed first. Tracy finally understands the real reason behind Oleg's sudden apology gift. Elsewhere, Lord Gus storms into a grand hall, shouting for his father. He angrily confronts Nayland, demanding to know what right he has to stand between him and the Marquis. Nayland calmly states it's a right he earned fighting alongside his lordship since he was 9. Lord Gus grabs Nayland's collar, furiously asserting his position as the first in line to succeed. With a snarl, he declares himself the future master of the Marquisate. Nayland respectfully bows, apologizing for having overstepped. Stomp, stomp. Lord Gus storms out, vowing to return in a few days. Nayland is left standing alone in the silent, empty hall. At his desk, the Marquis sighs, looking utterly exhausted. Later, while reading in the garden, Tracy wonders what is happening. Nayland reports that Lord Gus ignored the Marquis's orders and sent Oleg's belongings. Tracy agrees and calmly orders them moved to Lord Gus's old room. Nayland informs her that the Marquis left early and won't be back until late. Nayland calls Lord Gus shameless, and Tracy sticks her tongue out in agreement. She realizes this forces her grandpa's hand, making her look like a selfish child who stopped her cousin from moving in. Tracy wonders if Gus ever considered how Oleg feels, and Nayland doubts he has. Maids carry a basket, one noticing the doll that was previously thrown away. They realize the doll was retrieved from the rubbish and even rewrapped. Tracy silently fumes, wondering if Oleg is planning yet another apology. A voice asks if Oleg's things should be cleared out, but another replies it would damage her reputation. Utterly confused, Nayland asks what they should do. A beaming Oleg appears, triumphantly announcing he's moving in and challenging Tracy. A promotional image shows the title, Becoming the Queen at the Age of 6. A credits page thanks the creative team and readers. With an expression of pure disdain, Tracy says nothing. Oleg nervously clears his throat, struggling to find the right words. Joel Tracy's voice reminds him that he needs her forgiveness to move in. She calmly warns him that his grandfather will be furious if he learns they defied him. So what? Oleg yells defiantly, declaring he doesn't care. Turning away, Tracy coldly warns him not to expect her help when he gets in trouble. Tap, tap, tap. Oleg watches her walk away, his foot tapping nervously. Waking from a nap, Tracy asks her maid if Oleg has left yet. The maid reports that he's in the courtyard, practicing swordsmanship with apprentice knights. She concludes he isn't leaving today, and Tracy wonders why he ignored her blatant warning. Swish! From a balcony, Tracy and Nayland watch as Oleg furiously practices his sword swings. Crouch! Hit! Oleg lands a surprise strike on a knight, amazed by his own speed. A knight declares Oleg the victor, while Tracy inwardly notes they let him win, but his attack wasn't bad. Oleg arrogantly berates the knights for their mediocre skills, calling them a waste of food and money. As the knights bow and apologize, he continues to yell that they are useless. A flashback reveals Oleg is repeating his father's cruel words. Raising you is such a waste of food and money. Tracy smirks, revealing that her grandfather saw Oleg's behavior and has given him a special task. A shocked Nayland asks if she wants him to fake an order from the Marquis. Tracy explains that since her grandfather is away, no one will know the difference. A confused Oleg simply says, "Huh." Nayland stiffly approaches Oleg, pretending to be unwell, and relays a message from the Marquis about his poor behavior. Smirk. Tracy's feigned order is revealed. Oleg must recite the knight's code before everyone at breakfast. The narration explains this allowed Oleg to stay the night while preserving the Marquis's authority. But as a soundly sleeping Tracy drools on her pillow, the narrator notes there's always a price to pay. A taunting voiceover addresses Brother Oleg as he struggles to memorize the knight's code, repeating humility. Damn it, Oleg screams in frustration, declaring his hatred for studying. Tearing up, he resolves to memorize the code to finally earn his grandfather's approval. As dawn breaks over the manor, he wonders what virtue comes after humility. At the breakfast table, Naylan looks guilty while a nervous Oleg is watched by a maid. Glance. Oleg peeks at the Marquis, who calmly sips from his teacup. Whoosh! Oleg abruptly stands and begins loudly reciting the 8 virtues. Starting with humility, he proudly lists the remaining virtues: sacrifice, justice, honor, honesty, compassion, courage, and spirit. His recitation echoes through the silent, grand dining hall. Peek. 2 maids listen from behind a pillar as Oleg continues with the code's rules. PFFT. A maid struggles to hold back a laugh as he recites the second rule. Spread. Unfazed, Tracy butters her toast while Oleg proclaims the third rule. Exhausted but proud, Oleg announces that he memorized everything overnight. Tracy beams happily, internally cheering that her plan worked perfectly. Smile. The Marquis smiles fondly, wondering what to do with his clever granddaughter. He turns to a startled Oleg and asks him to explain why he memorized the knight's code. Oleg humbly admits it was punishment for his arrogant behavior toward the knights. The Marquis praises Oleg for recognizing his flaws, declaring that he has impressed him. Straightened. Overjoyed by the praise, Oleg stands tall and promises to learn from his lesson. The Marquis invites him to eat breakfast, and Oleg eagerly agrees. A sudden realization hits Oleg. His grandpa wasn't home yesterday, so how did he know? Glance. He looks across the table at Tracy, who is innocently pretending to pray. With a smug look, Tracy lets out a silent, triumphant laugh. Mwahaha. P-feft Tracy bursts into laughter, and a crying Oleg begs her not to laugh at him. Why did you trick me? A furious Oleg demands, confronting her. Tracy simply looks back at him and asks, why? Pulls away, Tracy recalls her reasons. They would waste her grandpa's inheritance, they bullied her in a past life, and they ultimately caused her death. Oleg questions her silence as she stands with her arms crossed. A crying Oleg admits he was embarrassed when the servants laughed, knowing she had tricked him. Tracy coldly asks if he thinks people don't normally laugh at him behind his back, provoking a shocked outburst from Oleg. She smugly tells him he should be thankful, as this is likely the first praise he's received from Grandpa in years. Wah! Oleg collapses in tears, asking why she's so mean and wailing that he just wanted to apologize so his grandpa would let him move in. Grief. He reveals his father has become different, having already hit him 3 times since she left. I am begging you, Tracy, he cries, pleading that she is the only one who can save him. With glowing pink eyes and a faint smile, Tracy looks down at him. On a giant chessboard, a narrator explains Lord Gus is using his legitimate grandson Oleg to hinder the Marquis and ruin his reputation. Lift! Tracy tilts his chin up, demanding he obey her future orders if he wants her help. She tells him to become the apology doll himself, promising to approve his move-in if he listens to her. Gets up. Standing, she adds the tempting promise that he'll receive their grandfather's praise every week. A tearful Oleg hopefully asks if that's possible, wondering how she can make such a promise. Tracy confidently reminds him that she already made it happen once today. She presents a cruel ultimatum. Stay and earn Grandpa's recognition, or go home to be beaten by his father. As a stunned Oleg stares, she reminds him that he himself admitted only she could help him. Grip. Outside the Grand Manor, a fist clenches with newfound determination. Fidget. Oleg stands with resolve and announces to Tracy that he has made his decision. Tracy immediately gives her first order, memorize Vienna's geography in a week, and walks away as Oleg protests he hasn't even said what he chose. From down the hall, she tells him that his choice is not important. With a chilling smile, she threatens to tell everyone how he sobbed and begged her if he chooses wrongly. She taunts him, asking if he's willing to abandon his honor. Rage. Defeated and furious, Oleg can only scream her name. Elsewhere, Lord Gus sips his tea, smugly thinking his father doesn't have the heart to kick Oleg out. In the garden, Tracy calmly enjoys a small cake, savoring her victory. Pop-up Naylan appears from a bush, exclaiming that he understands her plan, but she feigns ignorance. Naylan lays out her clever scheme to get Oleg to study, thereby protecting him from the Marquis's wrath for staying overnight. He concludes that despite her sharp words, she has a soft heart and considers Oleg family after all. Do you think so? Tracy asks with a smirk, just as Oleg happily runs toward them, calling her name. Oleg excitedly asks what she's eating, declaring that he wants some too. Smack Tracy slams a book on the table, ordering him to copy its contents 3 times first. shocking a nearby Nalan. Later, an enthusiastic Oleg shows Tracy his new swing. As Tracy and Nalan prepare to leave in a carriage, Oleg runs after them, asking to come to town with them. From her seat, Tracy turns to Nalan and asks if he still believes she considers Oleg family. A sweating Nalan thinks to himself in horror that she doesn't even consider him human. Glancing. Peeking from the carriage, Tracy eerily asks if he was just thinking something bad about her. As the carriage departs, Nalan's inner voice wonders what kind of person could ever appease Miss Tracy. The scene transitions to a sunlit town as a young man with light brown hair looks back over his shoulder. The brown-haired man offers a confident, handsome smile. A sign for a fudge and toffee maker is shown as voices discuss dressing Tracy up to impress the nobles at an upcoming event. Tracy excitedly shows off a stylish red dress and hat, asking Nalan if it works. As a shop assistant gushes over how cute the dress is, Nalan remains silently thoughtful. Nalan worries to himself that the short skirt is inappropriate and will get him scolded by the Marquis. Tracy explains the skirt's length is perfect for concealing and retrieving any necessary items. Nalan skeptically asks if she means to hide sweets, but she grins and suggests it's just right for hiding a knife, causing him to gasp in shock. As Nalan and a shop assistant stare in horror, Tracy innocently asks if something is wrong. Tracy happily tells the shop assistant she loves the dress, and the woman agrees, noting everyone is excited to meet her. The assistant laments that it's been years since such a grand banquet, and complains that a Mr. Patrick is advising people not to attend. When Tracy asks why, the assistant speculates he's being overly cautious about potential injuries because he is. Tracy stares in disbelief, thinking, kindest person? The shop assistant gushes that Mr. Patrick is the best doctor, a famed traveler, and a perfect messenger of God. Cringed Tracy shudders, thinking the praise is a massive exaggeration. She suddenly remembers Patrick was just a minor doctor in the original novel, and wonders if his role has changed. With a confident smirk, Tracy decides to investigate him and force a confession. When Tracy suggests capturing him to make money, a nervous shop assistant tells Nalan she must be joking. But Tracy thinks, but I'm not. A sudden tremor shakes the shop, and Nalan protectively grabs Tracy, wondering if it's an earthquake. The shop assistant runs out, shouting that a festival worker fell from the roof. As a crowd rushes to the scene, a woman panics that Mr. Patrick's warning is coming true, and the festival is doomed. Convinced something strange is happening, Tracy heads toward the commotion with Nalan holding her dress. In the town square, they find a worker impaled through the chest with a wooden beam. Tracy grimly assesses the injury, thinking that without magic or modern medicine, his chances of survival are 0. The crowd parts as a man announces Mr. Patrick's arrival, and the women swoon. Patrick approaches the injured man and calmly reassures him that everything will be okay. He produces a small vial and urges the man to drink the potion inside. Bloom. The man is instantly healed, exclaiming in amazement that the pain is gone. Tracy watches from the side, utterly speechless with shock. The healed man gratefully thanks Mr. Patrick, relieved that festival preparations can continue. Patrick's expression darkens as he warns the man, "You will die." Looking downcast, Patrick laments that his warnings are being ignored, and the guilty worker apologizes. Grip Tracy grabs the shop assistant, internally questioning how he healed the worker without any magic mentioned in the novel. She wonders if the story has changed or if she's missing something, finding his ambiguous words hard to decipher. The swayed crowd declares their belief in Mr. Patrick and vows not to attend the festival. As the townspeople support him, Mr. Patrick allows himself a cunning smirk. Shock. Tracy leans over a balcony, still reeling from the impossible event. She quietly slips away from the crowd, wondering how this is possible. Nalan turns around in a panic, realizing Tracy has vanished. Tracy appears in an alleyway, having followed Patrick to a nearby building. With a determined look, she straightens her hat and prepares to investigate. She looks up at the shop's sign, which shows several potion bottles. Creak! She pushes open the heavy door and enters the dark, imposing shop. Inside the empty, lavish room, she scans her surroundings, wondering where he went. She spots a small, locked chest sitting on a high counter. After looking left and right to confirm she's alone, she approaches the counter. Climb. She uses a stool to hoist herself up toward the chest. Her expression is tense as she nervously reaches for the mysterious box. Open. she carefully lifts the lid of the chest. Her eyes widen in shock as she discovers its contents. Turn. Hearing a sound, she quickly whips her head around. Patrick is revealed, sitting calmly in the shadows with a smug smile. Stumble. Startled, she calls his name as she loses her balance and falls off the counter. Catch. He swiftly catches her, asking if it's careless to follow him so openly. Grin. He holds her fallen hat in his hand, a triumphant look on his face. Frowning, Tracy glares up at him, annoyed at being caught. She realizes he knew about her suspicions and her presence all along, but chose to just watch her. Cheerful Tracy's demeanor flips as she asks brightly if he's a magician and if his warning was serious. He confirms her suspicion, noting that she is not an ordinary child. She brightly introduces herself as Tracy Deviana, the 6-year-old granddaughter of the Marquis. He smiles slyly, retorting that he's just an ordinary doctor, not a magician. Leaning forward eagerly, Tracy asks him to reveal what will happen so they can prevent it together. With a wry smile, Patrick admits he finds it hard to trust her, accusing her of telling him nothing but lies. Tracy passionately defends herself, offering to take him to her grandfather Marquis Viana to prove her identity. Swoosh. He suddenly pulls her close, whispering that her identity is what he doubts the most, and demanding to know if she's truly Tracy Deviana. In the quiet, ornate shop, the two stand in a tense standoff. Patrick proposes a trade, her truth in exchange for a prophecy about the Moonwatch Festival. Clench, her fist tightens in silent frustration. Announcing she has to leave, Tracy sarcastically calls him Big Brother, but he taunts her for trying to escape so soon. Toss! He casually throws a small object at her, telling her to take it with her. Tap! She catches an ornate pocket knife, staring at it in disbelief. She realizes with a jolt that he somehow knows about her hidden knife. Tracy scolds him for giving a dangerous item to a child, telling him to forget it if he won't talk. He smiles confidently, giving a final, serious warning that something dangerous will happen at the festival. Laughing, she points out his contradiction. He doesn't trust her but worries for her and challenges him to reveal what will happen. With a dismissive smile, he calmly declares that he's suddenly not worried anymore. Tracy glares, remarking how incredibly fast he changes his mind. Patrick leans in close, teasingly questioning how a mere 6-year-old could know enough people to judge his character. Flustered and angry, she can only stammer you. He laughs brightly, dismissing his probing questions as a simple joke. Elsewhere, the red-haired Lord Gus questions if his father will really introduce Tracy at the Moonwatch Festival banquet. Naylan informs him that Tracy's reputation is rising quickly, as she's seen as a talented child with God's favor. Nonsense, Lord Gus furiously rejects the idea, insisting he is the only heir his father needs. He coldly orders an invitation to be sent to house hubs in the Viana family's name. Lord Gus smirks, plotting to remind everyone that Tracy is just a girl to be married off, while he is the sole inheritor of the marquisate. Later, a studious Tracy puzzles over Patrick, wondering how he knew her identity in a world seemingly without magic. An eye patch-wearing Naylan asks if Tracy wants to visit the carpenter injured at the festival, and she confirms her worry. When Naylan reveals Patrick took the man away, Tracy reacts with shock. Naylan explains Patrick claimed to be on a healing pilgrimage and took the carpenter with him for treatment. Tracy grits her teeth, realizing Patrick moved quickly to prevent her from investigating his mysterious healing ability. Naylan suddenly confronts her, asking if she was with Patrick when she disappeared. Feigning innocence, Tracy laughs and deflects the question, asking why he would ever think that. Naylan shrewdly notes that Patrick taking the carpenter seems like a message confirming that the two of them met. Freeze! She's stunned into silence as he adds that her deliberate denial is what makes the situation so suspicious. Tracy bolts, shouting that she did nothing wrong, as Naylan yells for her to stop escaping. Naylan catches her by the collar just as she cries out in shock, spotting her grinning grandfather behind him. The Marquis gently apologizes for Naylan's disrespect, leaving a flustered Tracy to force a smile. Sitting obediently, Tracy shivers as her grandfather scolds her for disappearing, revealing Naylan almost sent the knights after her. Tracy quickly fabricates an excuse, claiming she rushed off to investigate rumors of a disaster at the festival. The Marquis calmly states the festival won't be canceled over Patrick's rumors, shocking Tracy that he already knew. Her grandfather explains that Patrick spread the information widely, but he believes most so-called catastrophes are simply man-made and avoidable. He forbids her from getting involved, stating it's a matter for adults, which makes a pouting Tracy angry. When he asks if she understands, Tracy sits in silent defiance. She wonders why her grandpa is being so firm, realizing this is the first time he's ever refused her so directly. From an overhead view, she questions if she finally went too far. The Marquis gives her an important mission. For the next week, she is to stay home and behave. Alone with her thoughts, Tracy schemes to use the next month to thoroughly investigate Patrick and his catastrophe. Snapping back to reality, she looks around, momentarily dazed. Oleg asks why she was daydreaming, pointing out that he'd been calling her name. He marvels at her intelligence, admitting he can't even understand the problem she is working on. As a figure appears in the doorway, Oleg looks up and asks, "Who?" A serious young man with black hair, glasses, and a cane enters the room, and Tracy recognizes him instantly. The bespectacled young man scoffs, vowing never to marry her. Nayland formally introduces the young man as young Master Carl Hubbs, Tracy's fiancé. Tracy realizes with disdain that this arranged meeting is her grandfather's important mission. Foosh! She turns on Nayland, angrily deducing that Gus orchestrated the entire meeting. As a blonde man confirms her suspicions, Tracy internally fumes at his terrible timing. Tracy wishes Carl would disappear, while Nayland laments that it's already too late. Nayland cheerfully encourages the meeting, while Tracy internally seethes at Gus for manipulating her grandfather. Tracy cuts to the chase, asking Nayland if he's after succession rights. Nayland reveals that if she completes the mission, the Marquis will reconsider her succession rights. Hope dawns in Tracy's eyes as she wonders if she could finally become the successor. Tracy angrily confronts Nayland for underestimating her abilities. A red-haired boy named Oleg furiously shouts at a calm Carl Hubbs for ignoring him. Tracy screams in frustration, wondering what the idiot Oleg is doing. Oleg demands an explanation for Carl's insult, and Carl calmly implies that Oleg is merely an average child. Slam. An enraged Oleg slams the table, accusing Carl of calling him stupid. Carl coolly confirms it, asking if his superior intellect isn't already a well-known fact. Oleg challenges Carl to a competition as a flustered Nayland tries to calm him down. Carl disdainfully questions the Viana family's upbringing, finding it baffling. Screech. As Oleg begs for her help, Tracy freezes in horror, realizing he is the family's true embarrassment. Tracy gives a perfect curtsy, formally apologizing for Oleg's rude behavior. She explains Oleg's ignorance is his own fault and doesn't represent the Viana family's hospitality. Unimpressed, Carl scoffs, questioning if her family's low standards are worthy of marrying into his. Shocked by the blatant insult, Tracy can only ask him to repeat himself. He calls out her poor attempt to shift blame, questioning her handling of the situation. He delivers a final, harsh judgment, declaring ignorance the greatest catastrophe of humanity. Enraged, Oleg lunges forward as Tracy struggles to hold him back. Tracy recalls a memory of Carl accusing someone of marrying for the Hubbs' fortune. She finishes his thought with a sharp retort, declaring arrogance is the defining trait of the ignorant. Ignoring Nayland's advice to keep her distance, Tracy walks right past a stunned Carl. He watches in surprise as she admits she lacks the ability to feign politeness toward him. Oleg trails after her, excitedly praising her impressive way with words. Carl's companions note that he's probably never been spoken to like that before. Tracy punishes a surprisingly cheerful Oleg, ordering him to copy an etiquette book. The blonde man reassures Carl not to worry, but Carl remains silent and downcast. As the group walks away, Carl silently decides he can do without this arrangement. Bam Tracy furiously punches her pillow, vowing to annul the marriage sooner or later. She fumes, recalling from the novel how he became the male lead after abandoning his fiancée. HMPH. She blames the scoundrel Gus for inviting such a nasty person to her home. Now grounded, Tracy sits alone on her bed, seen from outside her room. Swoosh! Embracing her role as a villainess, she slyly decides that lying is only natural. Elsewhere, Lord Gus plots, noting that a genius like Carl would never give Tracy a second thought. He muses that Tracy will either win the Hubbs family's favor or be shamed by them. He decides that either way, he will spread rumors about their meeting across the entire country. Gus smirks, revealing his plan to force his father to present Tracy as either an unwanted bride or discarded trash. Later, Carl is lost in thought while picking at his food during dinner. He remains distracted even while reading, his mind clearly elsewhere. His blonde aide approaches him by the window, asking if he's still thinking about Tracy's words. Lowering his book, Carl quietly admits that he is. He thinks to himself that her sharp retort left him with absolutely no words to refute her. The blonde aide acknowledges Tracy's impressive articulation, but Carl snaps his book shut, sarcastically questioning if she's his fiancée. Seen through a window, Carl states that since the engagement was made in a past era, it will naturally change with shifting interests. He coldly states his hatred for children, calling them ignorant and unruly, and says their behavior only confirmed his opinion. In his luxurious room, Carl dismisses the matter, deciding to leave early tomorrow without another thought, as his aide mentally notes his predictable reasoning. The blonde aide reflects in surprise, wondering who knew a child existed that could embarrass the young master. Crack! The aide finds young Master Carl by a door, asking why he's still awake. The scene shifts to a wide view of the grand manor under a brilliant, starry night sky. Tracy escapes from her balcony, climbing down a rope made of tied fabrics. Rustle. Whoosh! As Carl reads peacefully on a stone ledge below, Tracy lands with a thud in the bushes nearby. Stunned and surrounded by question marks, Tracy demands to know why he is here. He calmly explains that he couldn't sleep and was simply looking for a quiet place to read. Tracy snaps that he should stay in his room if he wants quiet, not sneak around, but he scoffs at her accusation. His eyes narrow as he notices her outfit, realizing with a grim expression that she is the one who is truly sneaking around. Feigning innocence with a giggle, Tracy claims she is just playing hide and seek. He bluntly calls her a liar, pointing out that no servant would play with her at this hour, and that roaming the dim courtyard risks being killed by guards. He delivers his checkmate. Her story would only work if the entire manor knew she was playing, leaving her utterly speechless. Lowering her head, Tracy quietly admits that no one knows and she is playing by herself. He meticulously points out her elaborate getup, bag, and money pouch, concluding she is clearly leaving without permission. She frantically denies it, arguing that the manor is too heavily guarded for her to possibly escape. He coolly counters that the guards are currently distracted by the departing servants, providing the perfect opportunity to slip away. He perfectly deduces her plan to hide in a cart of leftovers, then asks where she's going before pretending he's just going to check on the cart. Telling her to wait, he confirms that the cart is at the gate, just as he predicted. As the cart begins leaving, he overhears the men confirming everything is loaded and ready for departure. He turns back to Tracy with a confident smirk, asking what she has to say for herself now. Averting his gaze, Tracy insists it's all a coincidence and that he's overthinking things because she's only a 6-year-old. He watches her silently, his expression unreadable, as he considers her flimsy excuse. He explains that as a genius, it's simple for him to deduce patrol patterns and the ideal time to sneak out. His gaze intensifies as he speaks her full name, Tracy DeViana, trailing off as he analyzes her. Her eyes widen as she spots someone behind him, and she joyfully shouts, "Grandpa, you are here." Whoosh! As a confused Carl turns to look, Tracy leaps onto his back, using him as a springboard. Slam! A gate slams shut nearby, startling a guard who wonders about the sudden noise. The guard walks past the gate, but finds the area completely empty, hiding in the bushes. Tracy watches the guard wonder aloud if he was mistaken about hearing something. After a few tense steps, Tracy waits silently in the bushes, her expression grave. She realizes the trouble she's now in, looking down at Carl, who lies unconscious on the ground. Realizing she's lost her chance at succession and ruined their family's friendship, she furiously kicks the unconscious boy, blaming the annoying brat. The next morning, the blonde aide informs a still sleeping young master that the carriage for their return is ready. Twinge, Carl awakens with a slight headache, confusedly asking why he's in bed. His aide explains that a guard found him passed out in the backyard, sleeping peacefully despite having no clothes on. Sitting up in bed, Carl stares in disbelief, repeating, "No clothes?" Stunned into silence, he tries to process the bizarre situation. He grabs his head in frustration, demanding to know what happened after he was discovered. His aide hesitantly reveals that the servants started gossiping about him having a habit of basking naked in the moonlight. However, he continues, Miss Tracy bravely stepped forward to put a stop to the rumors. Carl looks up, weary but intrigued, and asks what she said. In a flashback, a dramatic Tracy feigns heartbreak, crying out that young Master Carl could never be a pervert and furiously demanding to know who would dare strip him. The aide explains that since everyone knows of Carl's respectable upbringing, the servants all agreed with her. Tracy is shown sadly concluding that, unfortunately, they cannot search for the culprit who did this to him. Carl asks why they can't search, and his aide begins to explain what Miss Tracy said next. She explains that hiding the culprit is necessary to protect both families' reputations. With a sly grin, she proposes they pretend this fiasco never happened, asking if he agrees. Carl stares in shock, realizing those are the exact words he said to her before. A flashback shows him previously telling her the best way to resolve the situation is to pretend it never occurred. Carl smirks, understanding her strategy. She can't reveal the culprit without harming their family's reputations. In his room, the blonde aide informs Carl that the Marquis will help find the culprit, but Carl, putting on his coat, says there's no need. The aide questions if they'll just return to the Hub's estate, but Carl simply walks toward the door with his cane. As he leaves, his aide asks where he is going and if they aren't returning today. Pausing, Carl turns with a determined look and ominously declares, "Just you wait." A short time later, a text box confirms the Hub's carriage has left the estate. Watching from her window, Tracy reflects that he is now bound by his own words. She muses that he truly lives up to his name as the novel's logical male lead, crediting the Hub's education. Smiling to herself, she notes that he actually managed to endure the immense humiliation. Russell. Later that night, the scene shifts to a view of the Viana estate under a starry sky. Russell. Tracy quietly climbs down a rope made of tied fabrics from her balcony. Whoosh! She lands in the bushes, shocked to find Carl waiting for her, who calmly states he's been waiting for a while. She furiously demands to know why he's there, yelling that she saw his carriage leave. He calmly explains the carriage just circled around to the back, a simple trick he expected a little smarty pants to fall for. Still dangling from her rope, Tracy questions how he got past the guards, but he clarifies they weren't the ones who let him in. In a flashback, he's shown speaking with a man with an eye patch, explaining he requested a secret investigation from Marquise Vienna to avoid a scene and is now here to report his findings. Wah! Losing her grip, Tracy falls unsteadily from the rope as Carl simply stares. Landing in a heap, she complains about the pain and scolds him for not even lifting a finger to help. He coolly explains his inaction, citing the possibility that she might knock him out again. He then extends his hand to help her out. Slap! She smacks his hand away, challenging him to tell her grandpa what happened if he wants revenge. He instead proposes a negotiation, and a wary Tracy asks what he wants. With a serious expression, he makes his demand, "I want to go with you." Utterly bewildered and surrounded by question marks, Tracy shouts, "What? You want to come with me?" He explains that as a member of the Hub's family, he is responsible for investigating her to determine if they should dissolve their marriage agreement. Tracy dismisses his claim, stating she has no reason to listen to him. Stop. She raises her hand to halt him as he begins to follow. Just then, the blonde aide appears, politely informing Miss Tracy that the Hub's family carriage is waiting for her. She whirls around in fury, demanding to know what is happening and accusing them of kidnapping her. With a menacing smirk, Carl asserts that the fate of their marriage agreement depends on her behavior, daring her to refuse as she and the aide are seen walking toward the carriage. Seated in the carriage, Tracy internally weighs her options, realizing she can't dissolve the marriage yet without causing problems for her grandpa. As they travel in silence, she concludes that he is harder to fool than she expected. She resolves to change his mind before they return so he won't tattle on her to her grandpa. The narration explains the Hub's family is one of the most powerful in the country and that Carl is hailed as a once-in-a-lifetime genius. Tracy gazes out the window, quietly wondering what's so great about being smarter than others. As they arrive in town, a group of excited children runs toward the carriage, happily shouting for Miss Tracy. Now wearing a purple mask, Tracy is mobbed by adoring children who think it's cool she arrived in a carriage. Leaning close, Tracy whispers to Carl, asking if he was curious about the purpose of her town visits. A girl with braided pink-brown hair, introduced as Lena, beloved daughter of God, greets Tracy warmly. Carl steps out of the carriage and sternly asks Tracy for an explanation, reminding her he told her to stay inside, while Lena wonders if he's an inquisitor. Lena explains to Carl that Tracy saved her from being executed as a witch, and now financially supports homeless children, who find Carl's stare scary. Tracy cheerfully reveals a bag full of bread, announcing she's brought the promised money and food to the children's delight. As a worried Lena asks for one more, Tracy entrusts her with distribution while Carl glances over, silently observing. Tracy explains to Carl that because her grandpa forbids her from coming to town, she must sneak out at night to help the children. Carl eyes her with suspicion, questioning if she truly went through all that trouble just to deliver food. Removing her mask, Tracy admits she knows he won't believe her, referencing the Hubs family's strict belief in rationality and intelligence. With a sad expression, Tracy wonders how the rational young master Hubs could understand the feeling of wanting to help others. In a sepia flashback, she explains that the children are orphans, with nowhere to go, no one to protect them, and no one to educate them. She passionately declares that she wants to change their situation, even if it requires using what he considers petty tricks. She challenges Carl, asking what he, with his superior intellect, has done to help, leaving him momentarily speechless. With growing emotion, she accuses him of only criticizing people and quarreling with a little girl like her. Tears streaming down her face, she cries out, asking just what kind of genius he is. Two children peeking from behind a wall see her tears and declare that Carl is a bad guy for making Miss Tracy cry. Startled by their accusation, Carl looks on in disbelief. Lena calls out to Tracy, urging her to come over and ignore the stunned Carl. Hiccup. As Lena carries the crying Tracy away, she offers to take her to her room, while another child vows they will keep an eye on Carl, crying into Lena's shoulder. Tracy asks through sobs if young Master Hubs hasn't said enough already. Her tear-filled eyes are seen as she continues to hide her face. Clench! Watching them leave, Carl's expression darkens as he tightens his grip on his cane. Inside a private room, Lena closes the door and tells Tracy they are finally alone. Lena offers to fetch hot water for her tears, but Tracy, her back turned, declines the offer. Her expression shifting to one of sheer determination, Tracy declares it's time to get down to business. Lena realizes Tracy was never crying over a boy's bullying, while Tracy admits she made a fool of herself but had no other choice due to lack of time. Grasp! Stating it's time for business, she reaches for something hidden under a cloth. Swish. Tracy unveils a large map detailing surveillance plans for individuals named Gus, Patrick, and Seth. Lena confirms she prepared it as instructed and that children will begin watching Patrick's clinic daily according to a schedule designed to minimize suspicion. Lena explains that as street urchins, the children will blend in, and her own status as chosen by God allows her to be with them without raising alarms. The information reveals Patrick is a traveling doctor who has cured nobles of terminal illnesses but has no ties to the church. Tracy speculates his lack of church affiliation might make him less of an enemy, then immediately questions how he could be called God's messenger without their backing. Lena confirms the church has been pressuring her to join their ranks. Lena concludes that Patrick's unusually clean record is suspicious, as the church wouldn't ignore someone with more influence than her. Tap tap. Outside, Carl impatiently taps his cane while his aide informs him that Tracy has been inside for about 10 minutes. TSK. Lena tells Tracy that the potential danger to the upcoming Moonwalk Festival takes precedence over Patrick for now, and Tracy confirms she's warned the children. Lena explains that refugees from the defeated East Kingdom are now looting homes as they wander, and Tracy identifies the kingdom as a neighboring country. Looking alarmed, Tracy asks if this means the refugees might enter their territory. Lena bows her head, stating she can only convey what she knows without making assumptions or promises about its usefulness. Tracy realizes the potential refugee threat near the Moonwatch Festival is pivotal information and resolves to investigate further. Lena notices Tracy's flushed face and asks her what's wrong. Tracy brushes off the concern, explaining that Lena saved her from the trouble of the Hub's carriage being seen and asks her to clean up the situation. A concerned Lena quickly reassures her that there is no need to worry. Tracy smiles warmly, praising Lena for handling the situation masterfully. A stunned Lena repeats Tracy's words, questioning if she really handled it. Smiling in understanding, Lena thinks to herself that the 6-year-old Tracy is truly amazing and more capable than most adults. Adjusting her mask, Tracy instructs Lena to proceed with their plans. Lena agrees with a confident smile, thinking that Tracy could definitely be Viana's guardian angel, a thought that concludes as Tracy puts on her mask, looking resolute. Close. As Tracy steps out of the building, the blonde aide greets her, stating she has finally come out. The aide informs her that an impatient young master requests her presence immediately, as he still has much to say. An annoyed Tracy wonders what his issue is and why he is acting so brazen. The aide suggests she can judge for herself, smirking as he notes this is the first time he's ever seen the young master so displeased. He leads a small Tracy toward Carl, formally announcing her arrival. Carl looks down at her coldly and asks, "Have you cried enough?" Tracy internally fumes with disbelief and frustration at his callous response after her emotional explanation. With a sigh of compromise, Tracy decides she has no other choice. Tracy states that her only request is that he keep her sneaking out a secret from her grandpa, accepting any other consequence he chooses. Her eyes widen in shock as she demands to know the meaning of his unspoken response. Confused, she thinks that he looks angry, yet he wants to apologize. As the aide encourages her to accept the young master's offer, Tracy struggles to lift an extremely heavy suitcase he's given her. Carl sincerely offers 500 gold coins, his entire monthly allowance, for her to help others. Tracy is shocked by the amount, internally complaining that his apology feels more like a threat. She staunchly refuses his money, declaring that her goal was never to get donations from him. Carl calmly states he knows her real objective, keeping her nighttime excursion a secret from the Marquis of Vienna. Schwa. He reaches out and lifts her mask, wanting to see her face. He inspects her face, noting the lack of swelling and accusing her of fake crying to hide the fact she was out at night. He explains that his question about her crying enough was a test, leaving a stunned Tracy speechless. Tracy stares with wide, shocked eyes as he holds her mask aloft. Swish, he pulls her abruptly, and she angrily accuses him of taking revenge and forcing an apology. A flustered Carl looks away, insisting that's not what he's doing. He apologizes for his awkwardness, admitting he's never made such a mistake and isn't thinking clearly. Declaring the compensation sufficient, he turns to return to the carriage first. The blonde aide finds Carl sitting in the driver's seat and asks why. Carl simply says it's too hot inside. Rattle. As the carriage departs, Tracy reflects on the Hubs family's reputation, believing she successfully silenced Carl and achieved her goal. Her confidence wavers as she admits to herself that she can't be certain. As Carl smiles thoughtfully, Tracy realizes she may have just sparked an even bigger problem. A red-haired nobleman asks if the second young master returned to the manor late at night. His aide Oaks confirms Carl stayed an extra day, leading the nobleman to believe their marriage plans will succeed. The nobleman orders his aide to proceed with their plan and spread the joyous news of the engagement. Oaks confirms a news article is ready as the nobleman reveals his scheme. Tracy marrying into the Hubs family means she can never inherit Vienna. Smirking, the red-haired nobleman orders champagne to be sent to his father in celebration. Looking guilty, Carl apologizes to the Marquis, claiming his extended stay was a misunderstanding. The Marquis asks if Tracy wasn't behind some mischief, surprising Carl with his presence. The Marquis admits he was prepared to apologize on behalf of his mischievous granddaughter. As the Marquis asks if an apology is no longer needed, Carl insists Tracy has done nothing wrong. The Marquis agrees to let the matter rest, and Carl accepts his wish. Thanking the Marquis for his generosity, Carl prepares to take his leave. A dark-haired nobleman stops him, asking if there is something else he wishes to say. Carl turns back with a serious expression, suggesting they immediately call off the Moonwatch Festival. A red-haired boy named Oleg angrily confronts a silent Carl, accusing him of ignoring him. Tracy smugly suggests she's afraid of upsetting Carl, provoking a shocked outburst from Oleg. Carl admits his error in judgment and praises Tracy's cleverness and kind heart, much to Oleg's disgust. He confesses to Tracy that she is the first person he cannot understand, a novel feeling for him. Smiling warmly, Carl expresses his gratitude for their engagement and suggests they take time to understand each other. He gently reiterates his desire for them to take their time and grow closer. Oleg explodes with rage, raising his fist and vowing to teach the arrogant jerk a lesson, but Tracy calmly tells him to stop. Stunned, Oleg's eyes bug out as he asks if she's taking Carl's side. With a menacing grin, Tracy denies it, but Oleg screams that her glare proves otherwise. Tracy proposes a visit to the Hubs family, which Carl accepts as an eye patch-wearing man holds back a crying Oleg. Carl says he looks forward to her visit, and Tracy replies with a confident smile. As Oleg throws a tantrum about the marriage, a stern Tracy orders him to copy the art of speech 10 times. The dark-haired nobleman watches as Oleg storms off, warning him that saying, "marry again" will earn him 100 copies. The man with the eye patch notes Oleg's departure as Tracy internally calls him a troublemaker. The Marquis, William, looks into a locket and asks about the current state of the territory. Pounced Tracy joyfully hugs her grandpa, announcing she's here for her reward. The Marquis proudly tells Tracy she did well, adding that Carl was extremely impressed. He explains her marriage partnership will make her the center of attention at the festival, but Tracy realizes this was his grand announcement. Tracy confronts her grandpa, accusing him of intentionally misleading her and focusing only on her marriage. She directly asks if he's denying her succession rights because she is a girl. Marquis scolds her for her tone, but Tracy asserts it's the truth and secretly thinks this situation is perfect for her plans. The Marquis looks on in disbelief, questioning her choice of the word perfect. Tracy states that her timing is perfect for her grandpa to cancel the marriage arrangement with the Hubbs family for her. Inside a carriage, the blonde aide questions Carl, noting he offered the Vienna family help instead of canceling the engagement, which contradicts his philosophy of destroying the weak. Carl reflects that Tracy, despite being younger, is clever and uses her intelligence for charity, believing she could become an impressive lady with the right education. Surprised by this line of thought, the aide exclaims, "Whoa," prompting a curious "what?" from Carl. Carl clears his throat, justifying that it's not a problem to deal with her directly, since they are engaged. Blushing, Carl adds his belief that once his father meets Tracy during her promised visit, he will recognize the Vienna family's future potential. Later, the blonde aide recalls learning of rumors among the Vienna servants, and a voice demands he speak clearly about them. The aide reveals the rumor to a shocked Carl. From her first day, Tracy was trying to convince the Marquis to visit the Hubbs family solely to cancel the marriage. Hug. Tracy embraces her grandpa, who scolds her for joking about canceling the marriage, but she confidently insists she's thought it through. Tracy triumphantly explains her plan, get acknowledged by the Hubbs family, then cancel the marriage to gain the noble's attention, declaring it a perfect strategy. Ouch. Her grandpa pinches her cheek, furious at her god-awful idea to use the Hubbs' reputation for her own gain. Tracy argues that succeeding the territory is difficult, and the Hubbs family's power is a necessary consideration. Her grandpa gently explains that without him, the Vienna family would not be strong enough to protect her. Touched by his concern, she softly says his name. She realizes her grandpa's plan was always to protect her, sensing a danger to their family that she hadn't considered. While reviewing documents, Tracy asks about refugees from the East Kingdom, surprising her grandpa that she can understand the text. She explains Lena told her. Tracy reveals Carl gave her the information, stunning the Marquis as a flashback shows Duke Hubbs' victory in a past war, which led to the current refugee crisis.